Jordan tweet.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by.
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We're live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios. How beautiful is this view today? Huh? Daylight savings time. We got the shades open. A little bit of a new set here for you. Hope you're going to enjoy tonight's show. Got a great guest for you tonight on our panel. Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 FM. And first time on our program. Brand new show on WBOK. Bryan Bienemy joins us on the program tonight as well. We'll talk a lot about what's going on with the cancellations that have happened over the last 24 to 48 hours when it comes to sports, both amateur and professional. But we're also going to talk, again, the teams as well on this program tonight. So, again, don't think it's going to be all COVID-19 talk and cancellations. It won't be. We'll jump into the teams as well on what's going on there and what we can expect going forward. As always, we welcome our guest to the program, Gus Kattengell. Gus, welcome back to the show.
I didn't realize we were going first take, man. I'm ready to go. We're going to get controversial up in here.
Rock.
No, I love it, man. This is great, man. Super happy Bryan's joining us. And you talked about the view. And, look, it's one of those things with everything going on. Obviously, normally this is where we talk about all the different things that are going on. And we were talking college baseball. I just called Lamar and Tulane 2 wins. They were are to their best start, 15-2 since, 1972 or something like that. I know LSU baseball, everyone always looks forward to that. You still had the conference tournaments to go. And the Pels, hopefully we were going to talk about a great win against the Kings.
We were all sitting there waiting on the game to start last night.
I'll say this. I think if there's a city, is an environment that can kind of handle something like this, it's New Orleans. I have probably used the analogy of what it's like to be after Katrina and stuff like that, in our spirits and keep people. We were talking before the show, go to local businesses. I named a couple of places. We already have ideas of what I want to do this weekend and hang out and get together and do that. So we'll still be talking sports, but at the same time, we're going to be talking about the sports angle and news stories, if that makes any sense to you.
Of course, ESPN 100.3, noon to 3, weekdays. Bryan, welcome to the show. For those that don't know, WBOK, brand new format over WBOK, and you've got a sports show now. Tell the folks a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's right now, WBOK 12:30 a.m. We are Tuesdays and Thursdays after this March 26th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we have a time slot that's not generally used for sports. Most of the time, that's time with your family. But, surprisingly, the city has kind of got behind us, and it looks good right now. The listeners and the viewership is really good, and we're excited to bring a brand new kind of tint to what's going on with Sports Talk.
Beautiful. And the name of the show again?
The name of the show, Sports Overtime, with myself, Nate Murphic, and we'll be there at WBOK thanks to Wendell Pierce, and we're going to try to do the best we can. Now,
can you also hear the show online as well?
Absolutely. You can view us on Periscope, Facebook Live. You can also stream on Simple Radio. We're trying to give everybody a chance to see it, so you don't have an excuse for missing us.
Right. Well, I'll tell you right now, I started out, again, middays, but ended up doing 7 to 9, actually 7 to 10. Ended up with around Zephyr baseball. Sometimes it was 10 to midnight. Gus has done his share of again, night down. There is a place for sports talk in the evening time, so best of luck to you with your new show. Guys, let's start off, first of all, unprecedented in our lifetime, okay, and what we're seeing right now. Yesterday, the NBA suspended the season after Utah's Rudy Gobert, tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. Again, we found out this morning his teammate Donovan Mitchell also tested positive. So far, from what I understand, I believe this is the Utah, and of course, people within the Utah organization, at least 58 people with NBA ties have been tested. NBA has suspended play, and they're on hiatus. They'll figure out the next steps over the next few months. There have been reports that this could be as long as 2 weeks. This could go all the way to August. The Pelicans last night had their game suspended because Courtney Kirkland, an official with the NBA, had worked the Utah game on Monday, and the Pels refused to take the floor once they found out about Rudy Gobert. That kind of went like wildfire through the NBA. So the Pelicans, with an opportunity to be able to move up in the standings, they did not play Sacramento last night, and again they're in a situation now like everybody else in the NBA where they're in a holding pattern. Guys, let's talk first of all about the impact of this. And when you look at it right now, at least the NBA has suspended play. I think they would like to try to get back and have the playoffs and the last part of the season. It really depends on the outbreak of COVID-19 and how that is going to affect the country as a whole.
Right. I think containment, right, guys, is the first thing that you constantly hear all the time, and yet, I don't know. I sit here and go, well, what can you contain? How do you contain something you can't see? How do you contain something that you don't know you really have? Just in this case, let's just start with Utah's Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. Rudy Gobert said he hasn't been feeling well. He got tested for strep, got tested for flu, came back negative. So they're like, you know what? Let's just try this and see if it is, coronavirus. And he did. Donovan Mitchell isn't sick, doesn't feel sick, doesn't have any symptoms, looks and feels healthy. So has it. I think when you hear MLS 30 days, there's a reporter that covers an NBA team in Toronto that says he's hearing 30 days for the NBA. And it's probably to revisit, right, to see where you are. My guess, fellas, is that like the flu, like other illnesses, you're not going to be able to contain it and stop it. I hear anywhere between, 12 and 18 months before the first vaccine trials and things can happen. I think it's literally what it was going to be earlier in the week. Games without fans. You need the revenue, right? You need the revenue. You need that entertainment portion of it for a number of reasons as well. So I think what you're going to see is in the next 30 days, how do we put the games on without the fans to where it's easier to control? It's easier for the Pelicans. Let's just use them because it's our team. We can test the players, the staffers, the organization. We can tell everybody that doesn't belong there, like they already have, work from home, except if you work with the team. Once they come back negative, you tell your families, stay home. We got you, right? So it's easier to kind of control it from that aspect. So now you go to a game. Are the officials test-free? You can do that in 30 days. Are the camera people test-free? You can do that in 30 days. Joel Myers, Ty Graffanini can call a game watching a monitor. So you can limit the amount of people that are actually on the court or in the vicinity in 30 days. I think that's probably what's going to happen. And then as time moves on, you're buying 2 months, 3 months to see if you can start interacting with fans.
What'd you take, Bryan?
I kind of agree with Gus here, but I want to piggyback and kind of maybe go a little bit different direction. We've all seen the NFL kind of be the leaders on what happens, whether it be positively or negatively. Now it's the first time in a long time the NBA gets to kind of lead the way on what's going to happen next. So you're looking at a league with a very progressive thought process, and usually the first ones to kind of get out there and say, we're going to try something new, and if it doesn't work, we'll readjust on the fly. We don't think the NFL is kind of capable of that because they're always slow to the punch. With the NBA, I think what they're going to do is the 30-day notice. They're going to kind of see what happens from that point on. If it works, we're going to continue in a different direction. If it doesn't, we'll switch gears and we'll try something new. Luckily, it is Adam Silver in the NBA leading the way, not Roger Goodell in the NFL, because we've seen how they are very slow to drag their feet when it comes to certain issues. Luckily, we have the right league in charge right now.
Yeah.
I want to add something real quick. Mark Cuban said something on ESPN earlier this week, or after the game with the Mavericks. He said that the reason the NBA doesn't play later into the summer has nothing to do with the NFL, has nothing to do with Major League Baseball. Right. He says TV ratings will tell you that you get to mid to late June, July, people vacation, no one watches television. Right. But he said there have been plans in place. Bryan, you and I have talked about it on the show before on how the NBA season can start on Christmas in June or in January, move into June and July. You can own the summer.
Right.
So they've discussed it as well. That's the first time I've heard an owner kind of hint at ideas that we've talked about or we've wondered, why don't you do it? So they could very easily do the 30 days, say, hey, ramp up, get back to practice, get whatever you work. I've even seen people kind of suggest maybe a play-in tournament. Try that for the teams that are not there.
Right.
The teams that are maybe 1 through 6 already, come back in another week. That's buying more time. And then you can try it. And now you bring people to the summer, and boom, you're now a ratings winner because nothing else is on.
Yes.
So I think those are different aspects. But I thought that was interesting that Cuban said that.
Yeah, I'd like to get your take on that as well. 18 to 20 games left in the NBA regular season, depending on what franchise is out there. Right now, based on the standings, just the Western Conference, because we're again, the Pelicans. Obviously, Memphis is at 32 and 33. They're in the 8th place right now. Portland is 29 and 37. They're at 9th. In 10th place tie are the Sacramento Kings and the Pelicans at 28 and 36. Do they come back and play those 18 to 20 games and then go into a playoff format? Do they do, as Gus has suggested, a possible play-in tournament and forget about the 18 to 20 games? How do you think they handle this if and when they come back?
I think they're going to have to play the game simply because if the Pelicans win last night, now they're in a position to say we are the 8th seed, and there's no way to possibly do it in a fair manner to say, okay, well, we're just going to ignore the 18 to 20 games left. We're going to just throw whatever teams we want into this tournament and say, you know what, you guys figure it out. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think you have to kind of play the games, let it all play out. And of course, this is the NBA. If you want to move games around, you can, because it's an indoor situation. We don't have to worry about weather. And of course, here in New Orleans, I do believe the Pelicans themselves will tell you they want to see what happens if Zion can get into the playoffs. The storyline itself write themselves. You have Zion versus LeBron, the Laker 3 versus the old Lakers, AD versus his old team. The NBA wants that matchup.
Yes.
Same as they want with the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets. They want those matchups, and I think the only fair way to do it is to play out the games.
And you have that 6-week break after, mini camp in early June to training camp to kind of bridge to the NFL. Imagine in that 6-week period, you have the NBA playoffs and finals. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. You have literally built in sports a dead period for you. From NASCAR to Major League Baseball, no one pays attention there until really August for the pennant races there. That 6-week period to me is just, it's like a neon sign. I wouldn't be shocked if that's when we see the finals.
Well, we also have to keep in mind the idea that the NBA games are so spread apart when it's the playoff time that you can always close that gap instead of having those back-to-backs or those 3-4 days off between the TV networks. Now you have nothing else to watch but NBA ball, like you're saying. So, I mean,
make up the revenue and advertising. And maybe by then fans can come back in.
Right. The other part of it is, again, the sharing of arenas. You'll have to deal with the sharing of arenas, whether, again, with other sports, other events that have been already booked in those arenas during that time. Obviously, that's a logistic you have to get over. Then you start talking about the next season, the ability, again, to put together a draft. The free agency, how far does that get pushed back now? All that'll be obviously going to have to be decided over the next 30 to 60 to 90 days, depending on, again, the impact of the COVID-19 virus here in the United States, which is probably going to be foremost out there on whether they're going to either suspend the season for good, we'll move on, play it again next season, don't have a champion, or again try to play it. I'm with you guys. I think they're going to try to bring the season back before it's all said and done. And there is that time in the summertime they could do that before. And look, they've been talking about trying to cut games down, move the season again, maybe from October into November. You talked about the play-in tournament. That's also been discussed as a possibility. This may be the time to do that experimentation.
You know the wrench into all of this? What's the metrics? We had Scott Kushner on of The Advocate, and he kept saying it, and I'm like, it makes so much sense. What is the whatever to where it's okay? Is it only 10 cases this week? Is it, well, if you do the multiplication in 4 months' time, if we're not at 5,000?
Right.
Then, what's the determining factor to say it's slowed down? Because it's not increasing or slowing down. We just haven't tested people.
Right. The problem is
so we don't know. There could be 500,000 people are.
Exactly.
We don't know. So what's the determining factor? When we see things like the MLS or NBA or NHL saying 30 days, okay, great. what are you looking for in 30 days?
Right.
Are you looking for, well, tests are available? That's why I brought up, is one of the things we're looking for, well, all of our team's players and essential staff have been tested. Okay, well, that's a check. That's something tangible I have.
That has to be done.
But that's what I'm getting at. So I need tangibles, because what's the determining factor? Forget the NBA. I'm looking to my left over there, the Dome.
Right.
What's the determining factor to say it's okay to have a Saints game?
Right.
I mean, no, you're not telling me. Is it, well, by September we only have 5,000 cases, 10,000 cases?
I don't
know.
I don't think they know right now, Gus, because they have maybe models that they think what the impact is going to be nationwide, but they don't know yet. And the main reason is, and again, we're kind of running blind on this right now, is because of, again, the lack of testing kits. Now that again, this has been moved to the private sector, and the private sector is creating these testing kits, we should ramp up and be able to get people tested quickly, or at least quicker than we've done up to this point, and then we'll have a better chance of knowing exactly, how the impact is on this country. What it's going to happen in terms of, again, allowing people to go back and get involved in crowds again, go to games, etc. I think that is yet to be determined. And I think it's not going to be determined by the leagues. I think it's going to be determined by the CDC and the WHO. I think those are the two entities that ultimately will determine what's going on. And when you talk about the United States, it'll be the CDC.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely right, because it's the idea of the United States is so far behind the rest of the world when it comes to the idea of the testing kits. Now, right now, we see the athletes are being able to be tested, but that's the athletes. They have the financial means to be able to get these tests, get them from wherever they have to get them from, and protect themselves and their families. What about you and I? What about, myself, our kids, our elderly? Those are the people who aren't protected and most vulnerable. So right now, we need to find some kind of way to get them tested to find out exactly what we're dealing with. At this point, we still have no idea what the coronavirus is or what it really does. So you have to get on Google, you have to research, you have to look at the CDC to find out exactly what's going on. We won't know for some time now, and that's why it's important what you say, Gus, the metrics. How do we determine what's exactly, I guess, safe enough for you to get out there?
Yes.
Right. I mean, I know having a kid, being 3 before I can bring him into school, his fever, he's got to have a day without fever.
Right.
I mean, there's metrics. There's a list, there's a checklist that I can put on that. And I think that leads to the greater issue what we've had in the last 48 hours, 24 hours. There's lack of knowledge. There's fear. There's social media, which we didn't have in some of the early ones. So people tend to panic. And, I think it's a combination of a lot. It's the perfect bleep storm that's going on right now.
Right. Well, and again, I've said all week long, and I've said this forever, and again, I think you guys would agree, internet is a wonderful thing, okay? It is a great thing. It makes our jobs easier in terms of doing research. It's at the tip of our fingers. It also is a dangerous thing. When you get into a situation like this, where there's bad information out there, and it could cause a panic or hysteria, that's part of it, when you look at it that way. To me, we'll see what happens down the line here, but this is going to be a process. But again, it's what people have been told about the flu. I mean, again, not to turn this into a medical show, but when you wash your hands, if you're sick, stay home. If you're one of the groups that are vulnerable, well, then you again have to take precautions to be able to protect yourself or a family member. Those are the common things that we do with the flu, and you have to approach this the same way until we really know what this thing is, and we don't. I've done the research for 3 straight days, and I can't tell you what it is because everybody's got a different view on it, and these are people that are scientists that understand that, again, would think that they'd have more of a handle on it. Let's switch to the NCAA, because what happened today was, I don't want to say it was unprecedented, but it might have been a little bit of an overreach in some cases. The NCAA canceled the men's and women's Final Four basketball tournament, the basketball tournament and the Final Four. And now all the conference tournaments have been canceled. They've also, this is the one that I thought there was a little bit of an overreach. The NCAA has canceled men and women's winter and spring sports championships. Now, the SEC came out and said they were going to do a hiatus until March 30th and then reevaluate. I thought that, again, that most of the conferences would kind of follow suit with the SEC. Okay, we'll suspend play when it comes to the winter, what's left of the championships, the spring sports. You got gymnastics right now. You've got baseball, softball. You're going to have other sports. So what do you do there? It looks as though at least President Emmerich has decided that he wants to do away with all the championships. the economic impact on the cities, like our city that is hosting the Final Four on the women's side, that is no longer here, and the preparation for that, all the money that was poured into that, the money that was put up to be able to get the bid. I mean, you're talking about a domino effect here on that, and then to just arbitrarily just get rid of all the championships going forward when we don't know what's going to happen in 90 days, I thought was a little bit of an overreach. I'd like to get your take, guys. Go ahead, Bryan, take it first.
I'll start it. So I think what's going on right now is that we're looking at it financial impact from the city alone, and then we have to look at the trickle-down effect, which is the guys who sell concessions that have to put food on their tables at home. So it kind of just builds from that point. So you go from the guys who have to deliver the food to the stadium, the guys who actually work the stadium, the ushers and the ticket takers and the sales. And after you start looking at that, you'll never know the financial impact until it's years from now. And unfortunately for us, we don't have that kind of time because New Orleans is a city that's based on tourism.
Yes.
We need the dollars to come here to sustain, viability. So I have no clue of exactly how do we even, bounce back from this because it's, again, unprecedented. The only thing I can think that reminds me of this, you mentioned Hurricane Katrina, Gus. I think it's 9/11 because that's the only situation to where I see it's an absolute shutdown and we have to be on, caution alert pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Us three are sitting here now talking, but, we can leave out of here and come in contact with somebody who we don't even understand has the virus. So now I infect my family, you infect your family, and of course it kind of widespreads from there. So goodness, there's no way to kind of, look at the financial implications of this until years from now. And how does New Orleans bounce back? Do we charge, next time we have the Sugar Bowl, do the hotels try to recharge or charge a little more to kind of get a little bit more money back from when they missed out on this opportunity? Right. It's just going to keep going until, it's almost like throwing a pebble into a lake. You don't know the ripple effects and how far they go.
It's the truth. What about the possible overreach in canceling the spring sports before we really know the impact on this country?
Definitely an overreach in that situation because I think, again, we still don't know what the virus does. We don't know the metrics of it. And above all else, I think there are ways to still get these games in and get the financial the impact in without destroying the fabric of the city, which is tourism. There's a way to do it. Bourbon Street has not shut down, guys. No, so, the French Quarters are still there. The festivals that we have, of course, the mayor did decide to cancel some of those, but that doesn't stop the party in New Orleans. So if you're going to have a place to maybe reassign certain events to, maybe New Orleans becomes that place because we can, in a pinch, come up with the way to do it.
We did it with the All-Star game a couple years ago. Remember in Charlotte?
Did it on the Super Bowl a few years back after 9/11.
So two things that popped in my head when it comes to the collegiate aspect of it. And for starters, how important is college sports to an economy and a community? He's talking about New Orleans. We had to do a fuel stop coming from Connecticut and stopped in Knoxville. I got to see Neyland Stadium in Tennessee. It's everything there. I mean, when you have, Baton Rouge, how dependent is that? You talked about Auburn, Alabama, just SEC schools, other communities, Hattiesburg, Southern Miss, all those students there. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it's not just sports. They're canceling classes. They're making them online. They're telling students to leave campus. Well, if you're leaving campus, where are they going? Maybe some of those have places they can go, like back home to your folks or something of that nature. But for some kids that are from out of town, that's harder to do. Is it for a week? Is it 2 weeks? And oh, by the way, guess who in college towns is bringing in your food at Chili's or at Outback or at your store or at the mall or wherever it is that you're going, at Walmart? College students with their jobs.
Yes.
So, and again, in football and basketball and stuff, they don't have them. But in other sports, they have jobs. So it's like you just start trickling it away, and it is. It's easy to say, well, we don't know what we're doing, so out of abundance of caution, we're canceling everything.
Right.
Dude, you are the ripple effect. It's scary when you really start thinking about how far down it goes, from the kids to the parents to the communities to the places you go shop to the bars you go, and have a beverage with, or just something you go and eat. I mean, Sonic, McDonald's, whatever, the people that work the fries, all of that. Some of those are college students in college towns. Well, if you shut them down,
to the athlete part of this, in a lot of cases, athletes, again, have tutors. There are centers for study centers within the athletic buildings that, again, look at LSU, look at Tulane. Again, if the athletes are sent home and told to be able to do their studies online, are they getting those tutors? Can they stay eligible? That's another part of it. The other part of it is, again, the ability to be able to practice. If the campus is shut down, how are you practicing? How are you getting treatment? That's another part of this as well.
Right.
And then again, for the student athlete, because all this is shut down, will you give seniors another year of eligibility? I mean, that's got to be really thought out here. I mean, some will go pro, but the majority of student athletes do not go pro.
Yeah,
They've lost their senior year. Do they get an opportunity to get another year, even if they played 5 years already and had the redshirt year?
That's a great
it's got to be part of again, the conversation here going forward, that you've taken a year out of a student athlete's ability to be able to, number one, again, be able to be on a team and possibly win a championship. But the other part of it is, again, for those that are trying to go to be looked at a pro team, the eligibility may mean something as well. That's something that has to be brought up when you talk about the NCAA.
Yeah, no doubt, and I don't really know how you do it. We were talking before the show, and it's the idea of, do you FaceTime, do you use technology, and are the methods of technology now going to be considered legal? Because there's a certain amount of text messages and phone calls, or maybe FaceTime or social media contact. There's only so much contact you can have with these athletes, and now we don't know if that's going to be brushed to the side and maybe made more lenient, or if it's going to still be strictly enforced, because we know the NCAA has a bad habit of enforcing rules that maybe shouldn't be enforced at the wrong time.
Because we were talking about that in terms of the SEC coming out today and saying they're banning recruiting.
Right. That's the other part.
Well, stopping recruiting.
How do you stop recruiting? And if you're stopping recruiting and the ACC's not, who gets the leg up?
So like I said, I think that's why you hear a lot of people talk about we're panicking right now, because we don't know.
Well, and that's you said the word, and it's the buzzword that's been used through everything: abundance of caution.
Yeah.
And that's what this has been about: abundance of caution. That's why, again, we've seen the events, locally, nationally, suspended or postponed. We've seen these leagues now, both on the collegiate level and the professional level, suspend their seasons. That's why we're seeing an abundance of caution, because we don't know. Look, it impacts LSU in Tulane, off to their best baseball season since how long? You mentioned
1972.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. LSU was going to be in line for a championship in track and field, in gymnastics. Okay, they were going to be in line for a championship there. Women's softball. And again, we don't know what the baseball team was going to do. Okay, we know that Tulane was off to a great start. We don't know what happened in conference play, but there was a chance that, they were looking at Omaha as well. Look at Xavier. NAIA championships. They had a chance to be able to go. They're not going now. It was the first time they've been in had a GCAC title since 1996. So it affects them as well.
The Sun Belt was going to hold their championships this weekend in the Smoothie King Center. That's now gone.
Right.
And the other aspect of it, it's easy to look at pros, college, like we just did. What's one of the things we love to do on weekends here? Prep.
Right.
You talk about how it's going to affect these kids. We hadn't even talked about prep athletics yet.
And there was a rumor
we
today.
We hadn't even talked about that. What if they stop shutting down those things?
Right.
And then how, you talk about senior years.
Right.
You can't get that
No,
back.
you can't
In
get that
college, you might be able to say, okay, well, you played 5 games. There were 5 left. We can give you 5 more games or something like that.
Or
but
just,
you can't do that in high school.
It's true.
Because he's going to college. She's going to college next year.
Right.
It's just, but I don't know what to do.
Well, Gus, I had that call today on the show. What about the spring sports in high school?
Right.
And more than likely, Jim Derry, who was on this program last week from VSN Louisiana, he put out a tweet earlier today that coaches have told him that they are believing that Monday that all spring sports will be suspended.
That's unreal.
And again, that would be horrible for, again, a lot of these athletes who work so hard throughout the year to try
scholarships depend on
absolutely
that. And now you're hoping and you're banking that the early word on some of these coaches is going to last that. But guys, it's March 12th. It's early in the spring sports. We haven't got anywhere near baseball and softball season. What, kids graduate early May from high school. You're looking at an entire month of seasons really to still go. And again, that's the thing. It's easy to look at an NBA player. You have millions. Colleges, they got their money. Student athletes can maybe go pro. But for a lot of these high school kids, I was thinking about driving here. I mean, What if a scholarship is tied there
No,
to their performance
it
in a
is.
spring sport?
You guys have kind of mentioned it, but it's the idea of athletes are usually creatures of habit. So now that those habits have been broken, or even if you're on a winning streak, so if you're on a 5-6 game winning streak, now you take a month off. What happens to you now, because you have to kind of get re-warmed up to get back out there and start playing again? What happens if you lose 5 in a row after winning 5 in a row because of this delay?
No doubt. Look at the health issue. You're taking, let's say they take 30 days off. All of a sudden, teams that were unhealthy are now healthy.
Correct.
Okay, and that may affect it as well.
So I was talking to Patrick Mullins, local soccer product here with the Toronto FC. And I asked him, what do you do? He's like, I guess I got to go find something to train. Do you do those things? Do you have scrimmages? And it popped on my head. We're only hearing what the commissioners of these conferences or the commissioners of these major league teams are telling their employees to do. Right? That is, stay at home or do it like that. But I'm not hearing, well, are you telling the athletes to do that, right? So LSU may say no spring baseball. Well, guess what the kids are probably going to go do? They're going to go play a game somewhere. Let's meet at Mike Miley. Let's go do that.
Right.
Let's meet at the Y. Let's play some.
Like we've seen when they've
are
been
you
strike
really
season.
helping anything? I mean, that's what I'm saying. So are you either telling them, okay, we're canceling and you can't go play baseball because, all right, so Jesuit, Brother Martin, I'm on the baseball team. I can't go play. All right. Well, am I going to go play at Miley? Let's go play a pickup game because I got to keep in shape.
Correct.
Because once all this starts, I'm playing Legion, fall ball, all that stuff. So how am I helping the cause? The kids are still going to go probably find a way to go train somewhere.
Yes.
They're still going to probably go find a way to play to keep their game sharp in case, knowing the way people that make decisions go, hey, we're ready to start next week. And what do they expect? That you haven't practiced for 3 weeks?
Right.
It's like the NFL lockout season.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. So
the players practice themselves.
No one's talking about that.
Right.
All of these sports you're canceling. All these guys that were supposed to be playing basketball in these conference tournaments. What do you think they're going to go do right now? Play Xbox?
No.
It might last for a day or two.
No.
They're going to go hoop somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So guess who they're coming in contact with? Other people that are hooping.
That's right.
No,
it is.
It's crazy.
It's not a sterile situation. And look,
Right.
all three of us got into sports because we played sports. You got a chance to go hoop, you're going to go hoop. It doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to go, and because of your
Unless
love,
the edict
you
is
love the game.
Universities are quarantined. Like Duke says, we're stopping play of athletics. Okay, are you telling your athletes though you can't go train somewhere else?
Right.
You have to come train at the university. Well, what if the university is closed?
I would truly believe
people from doing stuff.
that coaches and especially coaches of particular sports will make a way for their athletes to continue to train in the private sector. We got to take a quick break. Hear from our underwriters. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3, Bryan Bienemy of WBOK Radio. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Bryan Bienemy of WBOK Radio, Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 FM here in New Orleans are our guests tonight. Guys, quickly, Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, NHL have either suspended their seasons for a short period of time or have taken at least a 30-day hiatus. Major League Baseball spring training has been canceled. Of course, we know the NHL has pushed their season back. I think it's 30 days on the MLS. We talked a little bit about it, pushing seasons back. How does it affect the TV? How does it affect the stadiums, arenas in terms of events that were already scheduled? How does it affect TV as well in terms of, again, have these sports overlapping instead of being in their normal seasons? It'll be interesting to see how that works out. But we're going to go to the NFL, and then we're going to get into the local teams. NFL has canceled their owners meeting, okay? But there's another owners meeting at the end of May, so again, that's not that big of a deal. What is a big deal is what's going to happen with the NFL draft. Las Vegas has been gearing up for this draft now for a year. And again, I know people that are going to the draft in Las Vegas, okay? And just like when the Saints play in Las Vegas, a lot of people in this town are going to try to go to Las Vegas for that game. The question is, are they going to hold it in Las Vegas this year, or is it going to go back old school, where again it's just a room with the phones and the people who man the phones and the commissioner and the players, and maybe not even the players at that point. Again, giving the hug to the commissioner and everything else. When you look at what happens to the draft, again, will the draft happen on time? Will they push the draft back? Especially now when you talk about COVID-19 affecting scouting. Saints have recalled their scouts now. The scouts have been pulled back off the road. Pro days, okay? Again, pro days are administered by the universities. So how are these guys going to have pro days? If you didn't run at the combine, again, then how are you going to do this unless the teams ultimately will have you come in for a tryout? Then you got to get in a plane, you got to go there. So it's affected there. Free agency set to start March 18th. Will it go off as scheduled now? Normally in free agency, we see it all the time. Saints will bring somebody in, they'll wine, they'll dine them. Is that going to even happen now this year with that? And then, of course, we've also got OTAs, mini camp, and training camp. OTAs right around the corner here. Yeah. So, again, how is that affected going forward? So there's a lot of moving parts. Start with the draft first. Your thoughts?
Right. I'm trying to think if there's anything you can do in Vegas where you don't have to touch, whether it's a chip, a card, a beverage, or something else, right? So that's going to be interesting how that affects that. If you were already having issues with having large gatherings, Nashville last year, what was it estimated, 500,000?
Oh, it was incredible.
It's 500,000. So you would imagine you would have something like that in that area. That's a nightmare if you're thinking of fear for that. All this started with municipalities and local governments putting edicts, right? The whole reason before all this happened 2 days ago that you were going to have your first game ever played with no fans was the Warriors and Nets. That was because San Francisco came out and said anything larger than 1,000 you can't do with fans.
Then it was Ohio.
Right. So do they follow that aspect of it? I'm having a hard time thinking that local government in Vegas is, the money that they would lose and all that. But again, you have to weigh. Is it money? Is it health? How do you do it?
And the other part of it is, Gus, again, if they do take it away from Las Vegas this year, they will give it to them next year.
Maybe you just bump everything back, right?
So that's the part.
City,
but
that has it.
Much like what we've seen here at the arena, we've ramped up for the Final Four, for the women's Final Four, all that work that went into it, the bidding on it, the money that went down, all that now, there's no refund on that. And I don't know if there's even an insurance that was given to force majeure that would compensate them for that.
The only thing I can think of is, Brian, when is the Final Four? It's the first or second weekend of April?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, well, the draft is 2 weeks after that. If they've already canceled that, I don't see how the draft goes the way it normally does.
Yeah, I'm with you guys, and I think another element to this is the CBA that's still going on, and you mentioned the owners meeting, so that's a very important part of this as well. They still don't know exactly how they're going to move forward. We're going to hear later on, we'll talk about the idea of Drew Brees and his contract situation, but the CBA plays a huge part in that as well, because if you don't have that CBA in place, you don't know what you're playing the players. They don't know if they're going to go to 17 games, if they're going to lose a preseason game. This is a lot to discuss, And then, of course, you mentioned the draft, which all goes back to scouting. How are the scouts, this is when you have to depend on them. How good are your scouts now? Because if you can't bring a guy in, you can't work him out, and you have to basically go off the film, now you have to, I guess, depend on the level of competition. If you have a guy from a small school, and the Saints are known to take guys from small schools, can he really man up to the pressures of the NFL when he hasn't played against that level of competition? It's going to be a storm around these parts as far as how you're going to gather your information and get guys in, or even if you can basically, I guess, go off of video networking, social networks. I think it's a lot to be discussed, and we have such a little time to get it done because we're less than a month out?
Yeah.
So.
Right, and again, it's one thing, again, staging the draft, and that could be moved back to New York or whatever, and put into a more sterile situation, and in Las Vegas get it next year. But again, it's the other part, it's the other mechanisms involved in this that the teams need in terms of the scouting. Look, probably a majority of their scouting has been done. But to be able to put the final push on this, these teams don't go to pro days because they feel like they go to pro days because they're getting something out of it. They get the ability to interview the players, to see the players, etc. That's going to affect them. And again, when you start talking about OTA mini camp and training camp, especially OTA first, where the Saints have had 100% participation. Can you expect 100% participation this time around when somebody's worried about their family? Okay, and obviously everyone will have to be tested before they come in, but it'll be interesting to see again how that plays out and if that is pushed back.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, OTA and minicamp, we see the final 4 weeks, right? Minicamp's the last week. It's week 4 of 3-week OTA.
Yes.
But that is week, 5, 6, whatever, of off-season conditioning program.
Which starts before OTAs.
In April.
Right.
Like soon, right?
Yes.
They get in and everyone gets to work out and lift together for 2 weeks.
And that's like,
and
what, 80-90% participation?
Right, and you got 2 weeks of doing individual position drills, then you start OTAs.
Right.
But that is literally around the corner. So that's what I'm getting at. That happens before the NFL draft takes place.
Yes.
They're already,
they're already
we
there.
make fun of it on the show. They're jogging together. All right, but it's true. Right. They're all there in the facility. Well, is the facility
Well, that's
closed?
how you build a team. That's the building block for building a championship team.
And it goes back to the previous segment. If I can't go there, well, where am I going train? Am I going to the gym?
Well, that's the point.
Planet Fitness? Where am I going?
And if you're going to Planet
Fitness,
Fitness,
are going to be going around other people that I don't know if they have it or not.
That's the point. If it's going to Planet Fitness, is it a more sterile environment than you would be at the facility?
Right.
Well, we know from going to the gym that there are certain people who do not wipe down the equipment before they go. So you're in trouble when that happens. And I think another element to it is the idea of, we're talking about the draft, but there are certain, I guess, organizations like maybe in certain programs like Ohio State. If your guy is drafted by Ohio State, there's a moratorium on when he can actually report to camp.
Because they don't graduate.
Exactly.
Correct.
So now what do you do with that moratorium? Do you kind of extend that, or do you get rid of it now? Because of course you have to have your guys getting into camp because everything is going to be rushed once they resume, whenever that may be.
Right. And the NFL rule is you cannot have a player in your camp until their class graduates from their school. To your point, Brian, that's a great point as well.
He made a great point, even the segment before that, when it came to how is the NCAA going to mend some of their rules when it comes to recruiting and all that stuff. I think what we're going to see, and again, another phrase we're going to hear all the time, uncharted territory.
It's true.
You're going to have to make amendments. You're going to have to do one case, case by case things, or hey, this year it's going to be different. This season, the rest of this calendar year is going to be different. Period. It's going to be different. The Major League Baseball season's waiting 2 weeks to start the regular season. We're waiting the conclusion of the NBA season, NHL season. This is already going to be a completely different year, so uncharted waters.
Yep. Let's shift gears and talk about the New Orleans Saints, get away from COVID-19, the coronavirus, talk some sports. First thing out the box, Drew Brees. He said that he's going to return. Want to find out what you guys think, first of all, about his returning. I've said before, really, since the end of the season, this has to be a little bit different for Brees. He has to be more definitive to me on how long he wants to play. Now, again, he has said that he's going to take it a year by year, but that's not fair to the club. You're letting Teddy Bridgewater walk out the door right now, and he's going to be a starting quarterback for another team, maybe in the NFC South. You've got a situation where they believe Taysom is the heir apparent, whether they're buying into that or that is just, talk at this point, we don't know. But no matter what, you have to be able to know whether you're going to groom a young quarterback, whether you're going to bring a free agent in, or ultimately Taysom Hill is going to take over where you radically change the offense. I'd like to get you guys' take on whether Breeze needs to be more definitive, or again, he has earned the right to go year by year. And then if we would, morph into the contract on what you think the contract should be.
I think everyone has a right to kind of feel how they feel at that time, and they've earned it, whether it's out of respect, years of service, what have you. And quite honestly, a lot of it, you have to wait year by year, right? You don't know how your body sort of feels. You don't know if I can come back. I can sit there and be like, already like, those Lethal Weapon movies, I'm too old for this bleep. You might feel that already in week 2. He didn't play most of last season, so he felt good, and he performed well. I mean, again, up until the playoff game where the entire team looked terrible, he had a 29 of 30 performance. Fine, he can't throw a bomb. He can still beat you at the line, can still be accurate, can still put people in good positions. So he can still help you. I also do feel, and it's something we discuss all the time on the show, I have a hard time believing the relationship those two guys have, Sean Payton and Drew Brees. And I go just to what I know, my wife. She knows everything about my career, how I think, months, years before I think about it. Serious discussions like I'm hanging it up or how long I'm going, they know. So I have a hard time, him and I talk about it all this time. There's no way Drew Brees doesn't have an idea, much less Sean Payton. They've had those conversations. I really believe that.
Well, Drew Brees can't Brett Favre the situation at all. He has to kind of be definitive, like this is my last year or I'm going to play 2 more. Now, he keeps saying to anybody that has a microphone and a camera, he's going to play till he's 45.
Right.
The situation comes to be, it can't be about Drew Brees and his wants. It has to be about the New Orleans Saints and what they have going forward. Because if Taysom Hill is not the guy, and even if he is, you're still going to need a quarterback behind him because of his playing style.
Yes.
He's more likely to get hurt, and we're talking about a guy who's been injured in his past. That being said, you still have to have a contingency plan. And for the New Orleans Saints, you are going to have a young, nasty, filthy team that's going to be moving forward. You need to make sure you have not 1 but 2 quarterbacks in line in case anything happens. So for the Saints, I think it's more along the lines of they may have to take a book out of the Patriots, which is, you know what, no, Drew, you're going to play this last year, and then we're going to see, we're going to make the decision from that point on. Can't be about him anymore. And I know you mentioned the situation of the contract.
Talk about the contract.
I don't think Drew Brees can get $25 million. Is it a great deal for the New Orleans Saints if he does? Yes. It's a better deal if he takes $18 million. Because that's a better situation. You have DeMario Davis coming up. Cam Jordan will likely be up. You have the guys that you have, the young draft picks, Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, Marcus Williams.
Yes.
A lot of these guys, and we're just talking about defensively. We haven't even mentioned Sheldon Rankins, and guys like that are pivotal. These guys are going to be looking for contracts. And of course, there's the elephant in the room that is Alvin Kamara and what's going to happen with him. So if you don't have the money, I don't care how much Mickey Loomis and Illuminomics can play a part of it and whatever we want to say, find the money, Mickey. At some point, you can't kick the can down the road because the road ends. And I think that's what's going to happen for the Saints if they pay Drew anything more than $25 million. But definitely, I think maybe he can take a little bit more off that to kind of help the Saints out long term.
And I think the way it goes is along Bryan's line of thinking here. I think the Saints say, okay, look, that's fine. You can be back, and you can come back as long as you want. We'll evaluate the end of the season whether or not you're still our best option.
Right.
But he knows. I've been harping on this all season already. The Saints have to approach this offseason and draft looking for their next set of quarterbacks, as he said. He's right.
I agree.
Because I don't know if Taysom Hill, this is why I've been saying for Taysom, I'll give him a 3-year deal. Next year, Drew's quarterbacking, go be the Swiss Army knife. I'll go find like a Chase Daniel or something to back Drew up if I need to. And then Taysom, if you are to start in 2 years, you have 2 years to show me you can quarterback in the NFL or not.
Well, here's the problem. Sorry, my apologies. Here's the problem. Taysom isn't going to get that opportunity to prove he can be the quarterback because
until the year that he's
correct. Right. Drew's going to have his snaps. Of course, Taysom is going to be the backup, but because of that, you can't have him in the punt return room. You can't have him in the wide receiver room, the tight end room.
It's either one or the other.
You have to make a decision right now. Is Taysom your guy? And if he is, you have to put him in the offensive quarterback room and say, you know what, we're going to fully focus on developing you into a quarterback.
Yeah.
If you do anything different, he's not your guy. And if he's not, now you have a bigger problem because Taysom is not going, who's come out already and say, I want to be a quarterback. Would you put your body on the line, even if you don't get a long-term contract? Would you put your body on the line for a team that's basically telling you, you're not the quarterback of the future. You might want to kind of protect yourself so you can go forward and be the quarterback of another team because, as you stated, 31 years old at this point.
First-round tender being put on Taysom Hill, $4.67 million. If they do a long-term deal, it'll be interesting to see how that will be structured, especially if you can be paying Breeze around $25 million a year. And then, as you mentioned, the third-string quarterback, who's really the second-string quarterback, there is a situation there as well. How many quarterbacks want to come in and say, yeah, I'm a backup, but yet I'm really not the backup. I'm the backup in name only, but really if something happens, the other guy's going in.
Yeah, Taysom Hill threw the bomb, against Minnesota in the playoff, not Teddy.
Right.
To try to spark the offense.
Exactly. So, there's that part of it. If you're Chase Daniel, yeah, you have a love for this franchise, Breeze, everything else, but you want to come in and sit behind Taysom Hill.
Right.
Okay, in the last part of your career. That's another hurdle they're going to have to overcome as well. All right, Taysom Hill, Saints next quarterback or not?
I think, again, even if I go and grab a draft pick or something of that nature, he knows the offense right now. He knows everything you can do. He's in all the rooms like Bryan just said. I like to see it. Why not? Let just try to develop it and see what you can do. Because whoever is going to be after Drew Brees is not going to be Drew Brees.
Right.
So I keep saying the contract that he's going to get is going to tell us a lot about how they feel about it. And all we can do, and you always say this famously, listen to what Sean is telling you. He's telling you how he feels.
Yes.
And he's said it during the Super Bowl. They were looking at somebody else in Packers film, and Taysom stood out. They saw him as a quarterback. The vision was always quarterback until they got him in, and they saw he could do other things. But he has told us 4 to 5 times this offseason, the vision is quarterback. He's told us last season, this vision is quarterback. Chris Collinsworth said, the quarterback of the future is already in the room. Sean Payton told me it's Taysom Hill. So either he's been lying for 2 years or he thinks he's the quarterback.
Right. I'm not on the Taysom train, by the way.
Understood.
Bryan?
I think Taysom Hill, of course, moving it back to Sean for a second, Sean is a chatty patty, and I say that respectfully for him out there. He's a chatty patty because, and again, we love Sean for his arrogance. That's the same guy that did choose to do an onside kick in the Super Bowl. So we have to take him for his word when he says Taysom is the guy, because I believe he's arrogant enough to say, you know what, nobody else can make this guy work. I will, and watch me do it. The problem is that when you have a guy like Taysom as quarterback, you're going to need 3 more Taysoms just like that. And so now when you look to the draft, as we mentioned a moment ago, now you have to look at guys like Jalen Hurts and other guys that are mobile as well, because you can't put Taysom in that kind of harm's way often. And Taysom isn't a guy who's going to slide. He wants to run over everybody that he sees or outrun. And at some point, that's going to catch up with you, because we're talking about a guy like, a Cam Jordan or Marcus Davenport. These guys are 6'6", 6'7", 280 pounds. And when they hit you, they're not coming with a hug you. They're coming to put you on your back. That's why you have to maybe have another guy just like that. And I'm not sure if the Saints are ready to truly transition the offense. And if you're a free agent out there, Chase Daniel withstanding, are you really going to come after you see the Saints basically brought Teddy Bridgewater in, had him sit for 2 years, and you're still not going to be the guy moving forward?
Are you a guy that believes Taysom Hill could be the next quarterback of the New Orleans Saints?
I'm not, but I'm willing to roll a dice and see if it happens.
Let's do one more, and then we'll go to the phone lines. Alvin Kamara. I've asked every single individual that sat in those 2 chairs over the last month and a half, 2 months, about whether the Saints can afford Alvin Kamara. Will Alvin Kamara hold out this season? Bryan, let me take you first. Go ahead.
I definitely think a holdout is coming. And now, whether or not Alvin Kamara is the running back of the future, I'm not sure about that, simply because I don't know if the Saints can afford him, Eric. I think if you're talking about Todd Gurley, maybe even Zeke Elliott money, I don't think the Saints can pay that, especially now for a running back that's so multifaceted. And he is a smaller guy. He's not going to be Latavius Murray. He's not 6'3", 220, where he can take the pounding of being an everyday running back. But what he is one of the most dynamic offensive weapons we've seen, especially with Sean Payton as his coach. I think that warrants a pay raise. I don't think it warrants 12 to 13 mil per year for the running back position. And again, we have other guys you have to take care of. This free agency period alone, you're going to probably lose Andres Pete, meaning that you have a hole in the offensive line. You're going to have to replace that some kind of way, and you can't pay Kamara $12 million and then pay a guard $12 million. It's not going to happen.
Yep. Your thoughts?
Man, he's the most fascinating story this offseason, or this past season.
There's no doubt.
Because
at least he admitted he was injured over the last few days, which we all knew, right?
Okay.
Correct.
But then Sean Payton at the end of the season also said that injury wasn't his issue.
Yeah.
At the end of the season. So there's a mental aspect that I would need to figure out first. And secondly, if that number, the first number I heard was 13, 15, and he says 12 and stuff like that. I'm going north of 10. I got to think about it. Which is nuts, because again, this time last year, I easily would have made the case and still can. He's the most dynamic player when he wants to be and when he's healthy, that the Saints have on offense, period.
Right. To both your guys' point, going back to Taysom Hill for a moment, the way to keep Taysom Hill from being the jack of all trades is to get more talent on offense.
Yeah.
And again, especially at the wide receiver position, which I believe they'll target in the offseason. But if you're letting a Kamara go, then you have to be able to add that as well.
And if Taysom Hill's your backup, like
Right.
he's saying, well, you can't do other things.
That's right.
You've lost 2 offensive weapons.
As well as what he does on special teams for you. So it'll be interesting to see again if they bite the bullet on that and allow him to do that. Let's grab a phone call. Toby is in Gretna. Toby, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Toby.
Hey, Eric. Do you think Kenny Atkinson would be a good coach for the Pelicans? And I thank you.
Thank you. Well, you know, a lot of people, you want to talk about a train, not a lot of people on the Gentry train. As soon as that happened last weekend, the social media blew up because of the relationship between Trajan Langdon and Kenny Atkinson. Look, just think back, guys. A year ago, the Brooklyn Nets were talked about as the most advanced franchise in all the NFL between what Langdon was doing and what Atkinson was doing. You know, again, whatever happened on the internally there is what it is. There are some ties here between Atkinson and this franchise now. Thoughts?
I think it's all about what Alvin Gentry wants to do. Is he a guy that's kind of ready to step aside? Because I think there's a front office role there for him. I believe the organization loves him.
That's a good point.
And I think, you know, with a guy like Atkinson, we saw last year with the Brooklyn Nets, this guy was probably the hottest coach in the game, and he had a team with basically a bunch of no-name guys, and he took them on a winning program and put them into the playoffs. This year, you add 2 guys who have come with big egos and a little off base with the way they think, and all of a sudden now Atkinson can't coach. I doubt that highly. So I think if you bring him in, he's definitely the guy that can get this young team kind of moving in the same direction. You don't have to change the offense much. And of course, above all else, you get a guy that has ties with the front office, and you don't have to worry about the transition being, well, that's not my guy. I think it's a good idea if Gentry wants to step down. If not, give Gentry another year, because I don't think he's totally the problem with the Pelicans.
Okay.
That would make a lot of sense. Put him on the staff. Make him one of the assistant coaches.
Yeah, but you see, I don't think Atkinson is going to go from head coach to assistant coach.
I understand that.
And I don't think he'll go as, I don't think he'll be a coach in waiting either.
No, I hear you. I think somebody's going to go grab him quickly. I mean, everyone wants him to be the New York Knicks head coach and everything. What I keep saying with Gentry is, Pels lose. We get the phone calls all the time. It's fired, Gentry. You know that.
Well, was it playoff or bust this year for him? I mean, this is murky waters now because of the suspension of the season.
But Eric,
was it?
We forget the most important aspect, I think, fans, and you forget. David Griffin picked him.
Well, honestly, I think Gail Benson picked him.
Okay, well.
Okay.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
It is what it is.
Yeah, he did. And so I look at how this season went. You can tell me everybody deals with injuries. Fine. You can tell me you lost your franchise player to January. You lost 13 games. The thing that I'm going to point to, and yes, everyone makes mistakes, bad rotations, whatever you're trying to figure out, they didn't lose the locker room. In today's NBA, you have a coach that you guys are talking about right now who's won, who is respected, who had the Nets going that way.
Yes.
And they booted him out. If you can't hold the locker room, you aren't coaching in the NBA today.
I agree with that, Gus, but to the point, your point, do you base Alvin Gentry on being able to keep the locker room together and have a holdover based on what happened this year and the injuries, or do you base it on the body of work here in New Orleans? Not the new regime, the body of work.
Right, but here's my argument for this, though, right? We were talking about if the Corona thing wouldn't have happened, we'd be talking about a team battling for a playoff spot, right? Is he not doing something right? They're in the mix.
No, I would agree with that.
I mean, they're in the mix. Their pace, and you read the article yesterday, which is great. Forgot the guy's name, Tony Pena, something. He wrote that right now, in the last 20 years in the NBA, the Pelicans have the best pace than anybody, like in NBA history. So that they're doing good things. Brandon Ingram is an all-star. Lonzo Ball's playing well. I mean, if he wouldn't be doing a decent job, we wouldn't be seeing this. So
I don't think anybody is
I think
upset with the players fit the system.
Correct.
Okay, the players fit this. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
But the question is his style of coaching, will it work with a young team? That's the question to me. Go ahead, Brian, you get the last word.
Here's what we know about the Gentry. We know the system actually works. The question about Gentry is not whether or not the system works. The 7 seconds or less, the piggybacking off of that. We know that system can work, and we know it works even when it doesn't have players, because we've seen it in the times when everybody was injured. So the system works. The question about Gentry is not whether or not the system works. It's the body of work, as you spoke on. When he was in Phoenix, how did his teams perform? Is he better as an assistant coach than he is a head coach? I think the most important thing is going to be, as you said, playoffs or bust. I don't know if it's playoffs or bust. idea of if you can get us to the playoffs, then what will you do? Will you lose in the first round and get swept? Will you be able to beat a bad team or maybe a team you match up well against? How far can you take us? I think the question with Alvin Gentry when it comes to the fans is they don't believe, and maybe even the organization may not believe, he's the guy that can bring them over the hump because they have a guy in Zion, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram. You have these guys now. Can you get us over the hump? And if the answer to that question is no, you don't wait till the offseason to call Kenny Atkinson. You call him now and say, hey, I have a job opening.
Right. Say the one thing that's interesting, right? So a year ago, you had the Anthony Davis situation. He shined through and was the guy that was hard to kind of
save the job.
And now you have this.
Right.
So we'll see him next year.
There you go. Bryan Bienemy, Gus Kattengell, thanks for being on our panel tonight.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Best of luck with your show, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Best of luck. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. Also, Pelican Sports Television every Friday night, 9 p.m. You can listen live, download the podcast of my radio show at ericasher.com. You catch me weekdays, noon to 2 on Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2. That website also has every single show that we've ever done here on Inside New Orleans Sports. So if you've missed a previous show, you can check it out there as well. Also, the WLAE YouTube channel. Also, you can see our show there anytime you like. Special thanks to Gus Kattengell and Bryan Bienemy, our great underwriters who make this show possible, and of course the WLE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Naila Jones, Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. I'm Eric Asher. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.